Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Nick Saban Show, presented by Alpha Insurance. I'm Chris Stewart, filling in once again this week for Eli Gold. Great to have you with us. As I said earlier, Tom Stipe, of course, our producer-engineer on site, Jerry Kelly, our studio engineer, and we are very pleased to have as our media guest this week from the SEC Network and ESPN, Coley Harvey, who is experiencing the Nick Saban Show in a game weekend in Tuscaloosa for the first time for the show. Yeah. First time in Tuscaloosa in a long time.
Yeah, first time actually for a game. The last time I was here, the Crimson Tide were getting ready to go to the national championship a few years ago, so they weren't even playing a game here.
You're going to have to narrow that down, Coley. I'm sorry. Which year were you talking
about? I was thinking about
that
it earlier. I can't remember exactly what year it was because it's been so many here in the last couple of years.
I got that one out of the way before Coach got in the door.
Good.
So I want to make sure I didn't drop that while he was walking in. Your path to ESPN, again, we talked about it in the previous segment. You're a Northwestern grad, Big Ten territory, but we got you in SEC country.
Well, I'm from SEC country.
Really?
I'm from Atlanta, Georgia originally, so this is just down the road. I actually flew into home earlier this morning, saw my parents for a minute. It was really good to see them because I don't get a chance to see them much, and drove right over. I mean, that's the beauty of the South, right? Everything's pretty close here.
You can get to it pretty easily, and also great that in your career you've had a chance to see a lot around the country. Talk to me about the first couple of weeks, where you've been. Where have your assignments taken you so far?
Yeah, so far this season, my first game was actually at Kentucky. It was Miami of Ohio at Kentucky, and I'm telling you what, the Wildcats are going to be a team to just pay attention to. I know where I'm at right now, but keep an eye on that team. They're certainly going to be formidable in the SEC East this year. Mark Stoops is doing a fantastic job there, as he's done to build that program the last 10 years. Last week, I was actually doing an NFL game for radio. Was at the Ravens-Jets game there in New York, and not looking too good for the New York Jets and the New York fan base up there.
That's kind of been the refrain for a while now.
Yeah.
I understand that. Hey, you're working with Matt Stinchcomb, who's handling the color commentary in the booth, alongside a longtime friend of mine in Taylor Zarzer, Mobile guy originally. So I know you guys will have a good time.
We're going to have a great time. We've talked a little bit this week. I know they're coming into town tonight and in the morning, and very, very much looking forward to this game.
My question is, did Matt get banned from the sidelines after his alma mater almost trucked him coming out of the locker room?
I forgot about that.
Last weekend. You did see it, right?
I
heard
about it? I heard about it.
Yeah. I don't have to tell you what's just happened.
I think I know what just happened.
I think we all know. You can tell the reaction was not to your answer as good as it was. It was the fact that the head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide has joined us, and the Nick Saban Show is presented by Alpha Insurance. Coach Nick Saban, great to see you, along with our media guest, Coley Harvey, here from the SEC Network.
Hey, nice to be here, Coley.
Good
to have you.
Coach.
Thank you.
I'm not going to say the hay's in the barn. You reminded me that last week. That's not the case. It's never in fully. But you got a chance to go back to work a little bit this week, Coach. Tell me about how it went as you turned the page from Texas to Louisiana Monroe.
Well, I think that there was a lot to learn for our team, in this last game, playing on the road, number one, in a tough environment, very similar to an SEC environment. But secondly, it's not just about playing hard. I think our players really played hard in a game. I think they played with a lot of toughness. We didn't play very smart. We had way too many penalties, a lot of mental errors, lots of plays where 10 guys did the right thing, but one guy didn't, and that created negative factors, whether the play was unsuccessful or whatever. So I think the players should learn that it's important that you got to pay attention to detail. You got to pay attention to those details every day when you practice, when you prepare for a game. Because playing with effort and when you want to win the game, that's not enough, when the game comes. There's a lot of things that lead up to how you're going to be able to perform and how you're going to be able to play. That's number one. So we have practiced a little better this week. I think the attention to detail has been better. But I think the other thing that I wanted our players to learn is you can win and lose at the same time. We won the game, but we lost out in the polls to some degree. And Texas lost the game and got in the top 25. I think that's the first time in the history of all that ever happened. So the point being that how you perform is so important to, it's not just about winning the game. It's about how did you play? How did you perform? Did you play to the best of your ability? And, all the things, the other thing that I want our players to learn from, which, I talk about all the time, but what good does it do to be 20-point favorites? Ask Texas A&M, ask Notre Dame. So you cannot allow, what people say and what people think and what you read every day and what you hear on ESPN and what the line is in Las Vegas affect how you're going to prepare and how you're going to play in a game. Because none of those things are really positive factors for you to be able to create value for yourself and be the best player you can be. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned, I think, from a psychological standpoint. Obviously, there's things that we can correct, from the game, from a technique standpoint. But when I say play smart, I'm talking about fundamental intensity. How am I supposed to step? Where's my hand supposed to be? How am I supposed to move my feet to cover somebody? All those little things that really add up. Paying attention to detail is a habit that you have to create by having really, really good self-discipline, even when you don't feel like doing it. So that's something that I think we need to continue to work on, and that's been what I've been preaching to them all week. I hope they're learning something.
Coley, what you got?
In what way do you think you've seen that self-discipline this week come from?
Well, some of the players, it's different with every player. Everybody has a different degree of what their perspective is on things. Perspective is not necessarily what you see. It's how you perceive it. What do you think about it in terms of what you see? And, some players get it. They say, hey, I could have played better. I wish I would have played better. I could have practiced better. So they get it. Other guys, it takes them a little longer. And there's some maturity that goes with that. But you first of all have to understand the concept of, and I told the players this week, we used to play better on the road around here than what we played at home. Because we had some hateful competitors on our team, and when they played on the road, they were mad at 100,000 people, not just 11 guys they were playing against, and they wanted to prove something to everybody. And then, as time has gone on, I think that maybe just winning the game is the focus. And there's been 3 games, and I told the players this, we didn't play very well at Florida last year. We didn't play very well at Auburn last year. We didn't play very well at Texas this year. So you can't be a team that lets the other team think they have a chance to beat you just because of the circumstances that you're in. And your inconsistencies in your performance so far is starting to, let people know that, which is not a good thing. So there's a lot of these things that are just, decisions that you have to make. Is the decisions I'm making helping me get closer to my goals or not? And if they're not, why would you make them? Whether they're choices and decisions about how you practice, what your focus is, how you pay attention to detail. And that's true in your life, not just in football. So that's what we're trying to get them to do. And they have done better this week, I think. There were some lessons learned. These guys, I think, our fans don't really understand the concept that it's harder on players when they lose than it is on fans because people look at it, they're self-absorbed, how it affects me. But these players work really, really hard, to try to be the best players that they can be. And they work really, really hard to try to win the games, and they're not perfect. And certainly we need to do a better job of helping them play better. I'm responsible for that. All the coaches are responsible for that. We all got a responsibility to getting people to be the best version of themselves so they can create value. But at the same time, we also need to be supportive and appreciate what these players do and understand that it affects them and hurts them more when they don't play well. Like, there's something on the internet, I said it after the game. I don't do that. I'm not going to say it. I've cussed on this show too many times. Stuff, I'm going to say stuff. Don't do that stuff because I told our players, we're not doing this. Don't do it. All right? It's not classy. We don't need to degrade, the other team's traditions. Just go play. So I saw somebody doing it after the game, and I said, don't do that. Stuff. All right, so.
That's the Latin for it, I believe.
Right, so, but the point being is, I said it's the same way in all the things that you do. You make choices and decisions, whether it's in school, as a person, as a player. And every time you think you're not doing the right thing, and most people who don't do the right thing know it's not the right thing before they do it. They just do it anyway. So don't do that stuff. So we need to have that as a motto.
I'm working
and
on
maybe
the
that'll
t-shirt.
help the discipline.
Those are T-shirts for the year now.
We'll get that done. Pee-wee in Grand Bay always has that first question for you, Coach, presented by Alabama 811. Contact 811 before you dig to know what's below. Call 811 or visit al811.com. Pee-wee, good to hear from you.
Thank you, Chris. Coach, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, Pee-wee. How are you?
I'm doing well. You partially already answered what I was going to ask. But, you always talk about the players need to self-assess, and the coaches as well need to self-assess how they performed in the game. And undoubtedly they've done that. But when you're in that process, can you kind of see it clicking for some of the players that they understand what they've done wrong and kind of making a mental note to themselves, hey, I can't do that anymore? How does that play out?
Well, I think that it's the very thing I've been talking about. Each player some people can self-assess, and I'm sure you know and everyone out here knows that they know people who have a difficult time self-assessing. And even there's also a group of people who can self-assess, but they're very sensitive about anybody else telling them what to do or how to do it or whatever. So that's an important thing about teaching. Players have to understand when you're trying to teach them, you're not trying to be critical of what they're doing. You're trying to give them an opportunity to learn. It's like, if somebody asks you a question, you can have a right answer or a wrong answer. But the wrong answer is just an opportunity to learn if you look at it the right way. All right, but if you're sensitive about it and you get your feelings hurt about it and then you're defensive about it and you want to explain why you did what you did, I tell players all the time, I don't really care what you did. I don't care why you did what you did. What you did is wrong. We are telling you to do it this way. That's all you need. That's all the conversation needs to be. I don't need to have any conversation with you about why you did what you did. You did it wrong. So this is how you do it right. So some people, I'm not going to get into names or whatever, but the best players can self-assess. The best players can take criticism. The best players understand that any criticism or coaching or teaching that they get is to help them get better. And they understand that and they accept that. And I think, you have to approach a player the right way. You're not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. You're trying to teach them. Coaching is teaching. Teaching is ability to inspire learning. So every player is a little bit different when it comes to that. But immature players, young players, have a tough time dealing with that. But I do think we have a good bunch of guys on our team this year. We don't have a lot of guys that don't want to do it right. They don't want to be good. They really work hard. I just think the focus is what's the challenge, that I talk about all the time. We had a great Monday practice for Texas, one of the best we've ever had. Then we get to be 20-point favorites and everybody pick up the paper and it's like we just show up and win. And things just kind of go downhill for the rest of the week because everybody thinks you're just going to show up and win. You can't think that way. And when I say these are the lessons you need to learn, because those habits that you create in practice are going to show up in the game. All right, so, and everybody needs to understand that, and it is really, really difficult to sustain that every day. Every day. Player comes to practice every day. It's hard. Every day it's hot. It's really difficult to sustain. Maybe nobody out there has any trouble sustaining what they do if they have a job or they have work. All right, but you got to be able to make yourself do things when you don't feel like doing them. If you can't do that, you're probably not going to be successful because you're not going to feel like doing it all the time.
Pee-wee, thanks for
Pee-wee, you didn't deserve that.
You just caught him at the wrong time, Pee-wee. We've got more coming up. If you got a question for Coach, give us a call on the Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline at 877-202-BAMA. Back with more in a moment here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. Texas 6. Empty set again. Young, pump fake. Looks to his left, rolls to his left, stops, looks into the end zone. Catch is made. Touchdown, Alabama. Jahmyr Gibbs makes the grab in the back of the end zone, and Alabama has tied it up. That refreshing Bama highlight is presented by Yellowhammer Brewing Company. Brewed locally in Alabama and served to fans across the Southeast. Great to have you with us back here on Hey Coach, coming to you live from Baumhauer's Victory Grill in Tuscaloosa. Our media guest this evening from the SEC Network, Coley Harvey. He will be on the call along with Matt Stinchcomb, who will handle the analysis from the booth, alongside Taylor Zarzer handling the play-by-play on the coverage Saturday night on the SEC Network. So it'll be your first time. I said Saturday night, Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
Hydrate, I would warn you, even though it's going to be a little nicer than it's been. Hydrate.
Trust me, being from the South, I know.
You got it. You don't,
September, October are still not fun.
Atlanta, Tuscaloosa run pretty much on that straight line across. Yep. You're in good shape there. Coach, I'm curious, how long did it take the guys to you talked about hydrating and getting prepped to go and play in that game. What's the recovery time after a game like that, where it's just incredibly hot?
Well, I think that's another, thing that, players have to do a good job of. It's not just what you do when you go to practice. It's how do you prepare yourself for practice? How do you prepare for yourself for a game like that?
Right.
We do hydration tests. I talked about that last week. And, we had, like, Brian Branch, for instance. He goes out of the game in the most critical play in the game because he's getting cramps. Malachi runs on the field, doesn't even have the call. And the 20, 25-yard pass that they hit to get in field goal range at the end of the game was a busted coverage because we got a guy running off the field, we got a guy running on the field, doesn't even get the call, so we don't play the defense right, and they could have won the game on that. But the point is, and the lessons that you try to teach players is, okay, how did you eat last week? How did you hydrate? We wanted to give you an IV at halftime. You didn't think you needed one. And then you can't finish the game in the most critical time in the game. So all these things are really, really important that people don't even, they don't even think is going on. But I can't really tell you. It seemed like the players had good energy on Monday, so it seemed like we bounced back pretty quick. We do stretch and stride, or they do stretch and stride on their own on Sunday. But, every now and then, like after this game, we'll have played 3 games, and I'll give the players 2 days off. So I think 2 days off is 10 times better, not 2 times better than 1 day off. So we'll go Sunday and Monday and not do anything, and then, try to break it up and not play 6 games in a row, because I think that's – when I was at Michigan State, we had a really good team, and we went 6-0. And I said I should give these guys 2 days off. But we were going to play Wisconsin or Purdue, I forget which one. We lost to both of them back-to-back. And the team was wore out. And we lost to Purdue, then we lost to Wisconsin. Then I gave them 2 days off, and we won the rest of the games. So how you manage the players through the season is important, and I think this recovery thing is important. But, players sleeping right, eating right, hydrating correctly, all those things are really, really important in terms of how they sustain the season.
Coach, we're going to give some people here in the audience, if they've got questions, they can come over here to our right. We're going to have a microphone and can give them an opportunity to ask a question in a moment. But our first question on the thread from AL.com comes from Jacob. He's in Slidell, Louisiana, and he writes in, "Hey, Coach, there were many upsets in college football last weekend. I was curious if you showed the team some tape this week of that Louisiana Monroe upset back in 2007. That is Jacob in Slidell, Louisiana.
No, I didn't. I mentioned to the players last week that we only beat Texas one time in the history of football. And that was in 2009 in a national championship game. And they all looked at me like I was 7 years old then.
Like sad.
Like, I really don't think, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, is young people have the same respect for history that we all do. You know, when I was a kid, I was a Pittsburgh Fire fan. When they won the World Series in 1960 and beat the Yankees, I can tell you to this day every guy that played every position. Right field, left field, Al Skinner, Roberto Clemente, Billy Verdon in center, Dick Hoke playing third base, Dick Grote playing shorts. I could tell you every guy. Still, I was 9 years old. I could tell you every guy. These guys like, I don't remember that game, Coach. I was only 8. So I'm going to tell them what happened in 2007. Yeah. And they're going to say, oh, I was 5 then. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if they can relate to some of those things. I do think what they can relate to is what happened, what's happening now, what happened last week. Right. You know, Appalachian State beating Texas A&M. You know, Notre Dame getting beat by Marshall. Not to disrespect any of those teams, but those are the kind of situations we play in, and it goes back to that same thing, consistency in performance and playing to your standard. You know, that's what all this preaching is about. And it doesn't really matter who you're playing, and that's something that players really, really have to learn. But when you're motivated by external factors, does everybody know what I mean by external factors? Whether it's the crowd, the score, what somebody says about you, to disrespect you, so now you're motivated to play. You know, that's all external motivation. What I'm talking about is being internally motivated to want to be the best you can be. And that seems to be a more difficult concept to create on a consistent basis, you know, with a lot of people.
Coach, let's go to the phones. JB's in Haleyville with the next call. JB, go ahead for Coach.
Chris, I'm glad that you're doing well. I know you went through your struggles with the health issues, and I know that what you went through, and I just want to wish the best for Mr. Gold, Mr. Eli Gold, when he's going through his issues now. Coach, I just want to let you know, I don't have a question. I've got a statement. You know, back before you came, if we'd have beat Texas 20-19, there'd be paintings going up, the drive by Bryce Young and the kick by Will Riker. Hey, a win is a win. Thank you. Let's keep it rolling.
I didn't really.
He was just saying before you arrived, what happened on Saturday would have merited paintings and all sorts of celebration.
Parade.
And he's just thankful you've got the standard where it is, that's a win, and we're moving on to the next ball game.
Yeah, well, I'm me too. So I appreciate you saying that. But, you know, we have created expectations over the years. We have created a standard. We have created, you know, what people expect to see, you know, when we play. Sometimes that's hard to duplicate because we've had an enormous amount of success, and we want to continue to have that success. But I don't think that anyone should feel entitled to that. Right. You know, our players, our team, our fans, we all have to go earn it every day. You know, it's like doing the dirty, hard work in the dark. I mean, you got to do it or you're not going to have success. You got to go earn it every day. So, you know, I think that's the thing that everybody has to understand. And that's what I'm trying to get the players to understand. And I think we've got pretty good leadership on this team. I was concerned about how we were going to play last week because how the week went. I was really concerned about it. So hopefully we get back to the standard. Hopefully we can understand what it takes to play with consistency and keep moving on.
Coach, we've got a question, I believe, here in the restaurant. Sir, if you tell us your name and then go ahead and give us your question.
Hey, Coach, I'm Frank. I work with Mercedes. Just wanted to let you know, I know it was a tough game last week, kept me on my toes, kept my heart pumping and everything, but we've talked a lot about Texas, so with ULM coming into town today, well, this week, are we doing anything, or you doing anything different with the team to prepare them extra for this team coming into town?
You know, if I had, I've been asked this question probably, I don't know, 100 times. Most of the time when we have a big game. All right, so we have a big game coming up. Somebody says, well, what are you doing different this week to get ready for a big game? Well, to me, they're all big games. So we're trying to do the best job that we can each and every week that we go through our week of preparation to help our players have the best opportunity to be successful and play the best that they can play, dominate the competition, whatever you want to call it. So we're doing that every week because I think you build, you're trying to stack positive performance. That's consistency. So every week you're trying to do it. And we have a process that we believe in terms of what we do on Monday, what we do on Tuesday, what we do on Wednesday, what we do on Thursday. And the players believe in it. And they know what to expect every week, exactly what to expect. And I think that's important to trying to develop consistency. And I think it's also important when you do that to make sure you're covering all the situations and circumstances so you don't get surprised in a game. Just like that situation at the end of the game. You know what I said to the offense when we go in there? There was 1:28 to go in the game, I think. Is that right? I usually put 1:25 on when we do 2 minute and say you got 2 timeouts. I said this is the same stuff. I didn't say stuff, but stuff that we do every week. We got 1:28 and only 1 timeout instead of 2, but we do it every week. Need a field goal to win. All right, so it wasn't like this is the first time this ever happened. So, but you're trying to do that in every situation in the game. That happens. So, and I think you have a well-prepared team when you do that. But even when you do that, if they're not focused on what you're talking about when you do it, they go out to practice and make mistakes. And when we teach a player, all right, we teach you in a room. We show you a picture of what you're supposed to do. We may show you a video of a player doing what we're installing for you to do. So you have a visual picture of how to do it. We go on the field and we have walkthrough every day for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. We're walking through. What are we walking through? What we just showed you a picture of. Now we're walking through it on the field. All right, then we're going to teach you how to do it in individual. Then we're going to have a group period, all right, that breaks it down in terms of how you do it. And then we're going to do it in team period, where all 11 guys are doing it together. But everybody had an opportunity in this teaching progression, all right, to be able to get this from start to finish. So I don't know a better way to do it. And the big thing is everybody doesn't learn the same. So, some guys can learn it visually in the meeting room. Some guys can only learn it by doing it on the field. And you got to know who those guys are so you can emphasize that. I know we got teacher appreciation, and I got asked about this in my press conference last night, right?
Yesterday. Yeah.
And I talked about all the best teachers I ever had. And I have tremendous amount of respect for teachers because I wouldn't be where I was today if I didn't have really good teachers, coming up. But the best teachers I had, they taught me more like an individual. It wasn't like one size fits everybody and we're going to do this one way for everybody in the room. And that individual attention that you got sort of allowed you to develop and grow in things that were important to you. So I do think that's important with players as we teach players. And knowing that as a coach in terms of how you got to teach a guy. We got guys on our team, not mentioning any names, that we have an academic meeting every Thursday at 11 o'clock. So Miss Molly says, so-and-so's got 3 A's and 2 B's. I'm saying, how are you teaching this guy? Because I can't get him to know his right from his left on the field. But they have a way that they're teaching and he's learning and he's doing well. And I have to figure out what that way is. We all do as coaches. That's important. So anyway, I know you didn't ask for all that either.
More of that coming up in just a moment here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. 7 of the Horns right here. Gibbs, Burton, Holden, all available as wideouts. Gibbs actually in the backfield right now, goes to the right of Young. Blitz coming right side, steps through it, rolls to his right, directing traffic, runs it now inside the 25, gets out of bounds inside the 20. What a play. Bryce Young maybe saving a chance for Alabama right there, avoiding the sack, gets out of bounds with 27 seconds left to play.
And Bryce knows it. Heisman Trophy right there for Bryce Young. It's a quarterback blitz, unblocked. He has to get low, shield yourself, able somehow to break the tackle, and then get Alabama in field goal range at the 17-yard line.
This segment of the Nick Saban Show is brought to you by Coca-Cola Zero Sugar. With zero sugar and refreshingly delicious, is Coca-Cola Zero Sugar the best Coke ever? Well, find out for yourself. Our media guest tonight on the Nick Saban Show, Coley Harvey from the SEC Network, will be on the sideline Saturday, Coach, for coverage of Alabama and Louisiana Monroe. Go ahead, Coley. What do you got for Coach?
Yeah, Coach, I've got one question for you. At the end of that last segment, we were talking about the impact that teachers have and coaches have in building a player up. One coach who you were really close to is Bobby Bowden, and considering ULM is coming in with Terry Bowden, his son, as the coach, our crew had a chance to talk with Terry yesterday, and he mentioned the respect he has for you because of the way you would take care of his father when he would come up here. How much did Coach Bobby Bowden impact you as both a coach and as a man?
Yeah, well, I think Coach Bowden was probably represented as much as anybody could accomplish as a coach in terms of how he did what he did in a number of games that he won, but he did it in such a class fashion. He was a great person. He never criticized anybody else. He had a great personality, and there was never a harsh word that ever came. And what people don't understand is, I think I was 21 years old. I was in my first year of graduate school, at Kent State, being a graduate assistant for Don James, who actually coached with Bobby Bowden at Florida State, with Bill Peterson being the coach way back when. I don't even know how many years ago that was. But so Coach James and Coach Bowden were friends. And I was being a GA. My dad passed away in September. I went home. It was really difficult, went back to school, and all of a sudden Coach Bowden calls one day and says, I know your mom's here, I knew your dad, if you need to come back home and be closer to your mom, I'll make sure that you have a place to work here at West Virginia and do something so you can continue to develop your career. He didn't have to do that. I mean, he knew my dad, he recruited 3 players. Coach Bowden was an assistant that guys I played with in Pop Warner that he recruited that all went to West Virginia and all made All-American. And, he'd come stop at my dad's service station and talk to him about that. But Terry and Tommy Bowden both were GAs at West Virginia when I was coaching at West Virginia University in 1978 and 1979. So I followed Terry and Tommy for their entire coaching career as well. But Coach Bowden was one of my favorite all times. And he was from Alabama, and he loved Alabama. And he loved coming back to Alabama to all the functions that we would have when he would come back. And just such a classy gentleman, man. A great person. I can't say enough good things about him, and I appreciate him more than anybody could know.
Coley, you inadvertently took the question that Bert in Russellville, Alabama had, which is
I'm
fine.
sorry, Bert.
You do not need to. You covered it. But that question, had it come from Bert, would have been our second question of the night from AL.com. You can submit your questions each week through that website, AL.com. We're going to go back to the phones. Christian is in Coleman. How you doing, Christian?
Hey, Coach. How you guys doing?
Doing good, Christian. How are you?
I'm doing good. Looking forward to another week of Alabama football. A great win for us at Texas, but it's time to move forward. One thing I wanted to ask you tonight, I'm wondering if you could expand on what you mean by mental toughness, and would you say that that's one of the most important factors to teach the players when preparing for a game in practice and even going into the game?
Right. I think the question is, if I heard it correctly, is can I expand on what I mean by mental toughness?
Correct.
And, well, I think that, people talk about resiliency. People talk about being able to overcome adversity. I think mental toughness is being able to sustain and do things when you don't feel like doing it or you think you can't do it any longer. You can mentally make yourself continue to do it. And I think the mental toughness that we showed in the last game, and I think that's one thing that you got to say about our team, the resiliency that they showed. All right, they created a lot of tough circumstances for themselves. You got to give Texas a lot of credit. They played a really good game too. All right, but we made some mistakes that helped them. We had 112 yards in penalties. 100 yards, as you've heard me say this before, 100 yards of field position in a football game is like equal to 7 points. So we made it difficult. 10 of the points that they got came after stops on defense that gave them penalties and gave them first downs. So we've been talking about playing smarter. But the whole idea and the whole fact that we won the game was because of the mental toughness that we showed down the stretch and the ability to play better in the fourth quarter in well over 100-degree heat, when they were tired, when they were wore out, when they had a lot of bad things happening, and they came back in the game twice to win the game. I think the resiliency that the team showed is a demonstration of the mental toughness that they have to be able to persevere in difficult circumstances and tough situations. I mean, sometimes you got to hit yourself on the chest, and I told the players this, and I've told them this before, because you got to regain the momentum. You got to regain the momentum in terms of your mental energy and how you think in terms of what you got to go out there and be able to do. And I think great players can do that even in difficult circumstances. And that's one thing that I think you have to say about our team last week, regardless of, what people put on the internet, is they showed tremendous resiliency in being able to overcome adversity. And that starts with the mental toughness they had. Now, you can't develop mental toughness if you don't have difficult things that happen to you. I think I've made this statement before. Hard times make tough people. Easy times make soft people. Well, that's why you have fall camp. That's why you put these guys through what you put them through, so they develop the mental toughness to be able to persevere difficult circumstances. Because I'm just telling you, from playing in the SEC all these years, you can't win on the road in this league if you don't have mental toughness. It's tough. All right, and that game that we played was just like playing an SEC game on the road. There was 100,000 people there. If Texas was in the SEC now, which they soon will be, they would be in the top half of the league.
Coach, we'll come back. We'll get your last word, presented by Mercedes-Benz. One final question from Coley Harvey as well of the SEC Network. Stay with us right here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. 33 yards, snap, spot, kick, all up, and good! Will Reichert boots it through with 10 seconds to go, and Bama leads it 20-19. That would be your final, of course, on Saturday. Coming up this weekend, Alabama taking on University of Louisiana Monroe. 3 o'clock kick, noon start time on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. We continue on with the Nick Saban Show, presented by Alpha Insurance. For auto, home, and life insurance, call Alpha. Our media guest tonight has been Coley Harvey. You'll see him on the sidelines for the SEC Network and their coverage of our game on Saturday. And Coley, we got a chance for you to ask Coach one more question.
Coach, you've mentioned a lot tonight the desire to get back to the standard. What is the standard you have to see from your players on Saturday?
Well, the way I look at that, it's an intangible thing. It's, are you focused? Do you give effort? Do you play with toughness? Do you have the discipline to execute and do your job and be accountable to each other? If we don't have enough ability to win the game, that's one thing. All right, but if you get players to do all those intangible things and they go out on the field and execute the way they should, then you have to accept the results that come to you. Because, other teams have good players too. Sometimes we don't think about that. I've told the story a lot about the defensive back I had, and I won't mention any names, that I was coaching in the NFL, and Jerry Rice caught about 10 passes on him. So we were going through the film, and I was telling him, all the things he needed to do to cover Jerry Rice. And he looked at me and said, if you want me to do all that stuff, Coach, you're going to have to pay me more.
Oh, come on.
Because Jerry Rice is making like 10 times more than I'm making. So the other guys have good guys too.
Yeah.
But if you can get your team to play to that level, to that standard of effort and toughness and discipline to execute, then I think whatever happens, happens. I don't think fans look at things like that, but as a teacher and a coach, that's my goal, is can we get our team to play to the best of their ability. Each player on the team doing that is what's going to help us create, each individual doing that's going to help us create the best team, and that's the goal. That's what we want to do.
Coach, want to leave time for your final word, and as always, that final word from Coach Saban is presented by Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah, I think there's certain things that, sort of shape your life, but I think there's also certain things that sort of shape, your season, as a team. What do you choose to focus on? What decisions did you choose to make in terms of how you need to do things so that you can build on and stack positive performance? So you can have gratitude for the opportunities that you have, or you can have a negative attitude about everything that happens and be disappointed. Your disappointments can drive you and motivate you, or they can destroy you, either one. So how are you going to accept the challenge of what you need to do to make the choices and decisions to be the best version of yourself? This will help you in your life. It'll help you be the best player you can be. It'll help you create value for your future. So what actions are you going to take? And everybody's got to make that choice and decision. And you think, there's a lot of parents out there. You try to influence your children to do these things, but they eventually have to make the choices to do that. And when you have people that do that, that's when you have the best teams. That's when you have the most successful group of people. And that's what we're working to try to achieve. But it's really everybody's decision and choice to decide whether they want to do that or not. I believe in this team. I trust in this team. I think we're making progress in that direction. But I also respect the competition and respect what it takes to win versus the competition that we have, and it starts in this game in terms of us establishing the standard of what we want to try to accomplish and be as a team, and try to create some consistency in being able to do it. And the fans can help us do that. You could really help us do that in every way by the enthusiasm that you have in the stadium on Saturdays. I don't think fans realize how they impact the program. There's recruits there. They see the atmosphere. They see the environment. They see the passion. They see it's different than it is other places, and all those things are important to have, a really positive program.
I'll stick with your theme for the night. That's some great stuff, Coach.
Put it on a T-shirt.
Thank you. Appreciate you so very much. Coach Nick Saban with us.